51,370 million naira only is for statutory transfers. 1,475 billion 320 million naira only is for debt services. 2,648 billion 600 million naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 1,845 billion 540 million naira, inclusive of 157 billion 150 million naira is for statutory transfers, and 86 billion naira as interest on capitalized loans is for contribution to development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st December 2016. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 22nd December 2015. Today is the first allotted day. I now invite the Leader of the House, Honorable Femi Bajaber-Miller, to move that the bill be now read a second time.
May I move, and I so move, that a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 6,077,680 million naira only, of which 351,370 million naira only is for statutory transfer, 1,475,325 million naira only is for debt service, 2,648,600 million naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 1,845,540 million only, inclusive of 157,150 million naira only is for statutory transfers, and 86 billion naira only as interest on capitalized loans is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2016. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the 2016 budget is epic and historical, not just because of its super mega size of 6 trillion, but for reasons that it touches on the economic and social well-being of the people of Nigeria. It is epic, yes, because it is the highest budget ever proposed by a Nigerian government. Epic and historical because it is the first budget of a new administration.
I rise to support this budget of change because of its unique qualities, which include: 1, it is very realistic. 2, it is all-inclusive of the very needed microeconomic solutions we need for this country. Mr. Speaker, there is a saying which says, it is the greatest calamity for any person or nation to tell itself a lie. And that is why I'm very happy to see that the totality of this budget is very realistic, because hitherto our budgeting tradition has always relied heavily on the proceeds from oil. But what do we have now? We have problems associated with our oil revenues. The 3 factors that define the accrual from oil all have problems. 1, the oil price itself is so unpredictable and is nosediving. 2, the volume. Even just last week, some unpatriotic Nigerians were disturbing the oil companies, and then the volume cannot be relied upon, even what we got in the budget. And the third one is the exchange rate of naira to dollar. It is also changing in a way it's not favorable to us. So all this shows the accrual from oil cannot be relied upon. And that is why in his own wisdom, the servant leader president becomes more strategic and more realistic with himself and with the nation, and shifted the funding of the budget to non-oil sector. This is very realistic. This is very sure banker to us that yes, we are looking inwards, because we are going to look for the funding, almost more than 70% of it, through first what we generate from the customs, what we generate from the company income tax, what we generate also from the ports, and the borrowings which he said he's going to do. And we know for sure the president we have, he has character, integrity, self-discipline, and there is no way he can borrow and misuse that money. And this is where we are sure once we have this, the budget can perform. Mr. Speaker, we have been hearing from certain members who are criticizing this budget for their fear that the budget deficit is too high. But what they do not take into consideration, we are talking of Nigeria, the leader of a regional power, West Africa, the leader of a continent, the African continent. And Nigeria has paid its dues to the world. And this is the time of payback time. When we are having problems, the world will listen to us. And the world can lend us that, and we can borrow. Borrowing is not that you are weak, but borrowing is if you have the capacity to pay. We have that capital to pay. We have that capacity to pay. We have that respect of paying. And Mr. Speaker, I believe if this budget is passed into second reading, the beginning of hope, the beginning of revamping our economy will start from this one. So I urge honorable colleagues, the president has done things right. Let us do the right thing. And the right thing is commit this to committee levels, and then let the committees. We should look at areas of duplications because we know some of the templates, there are duplications because of what our civil servants are doing. We should be very careful. We may even have some savings which we can plow back into the capital expenditure and raise it further, move from 30%. Mr. Speaker, with this I submit and I say congratulations to all of us Nigerians that we have the best budget we have since the coming of this democracy. Thank you.
Let's spend the money more on infrastructures. When we have good infrastructures, foreign investors will come into the economy. But for us to start competing with the private sector is not the best. Because if today we have an allocation for 100 billion to go and buy planes for Nigeria Airways, in another 4 years, those planes will be completely damaged, and then we'll be talking about probing people for stealing money. Countries like Ethiopia and others, the financial discipline there is not the same thing as Nigeria. I think that it's better in this budget for us to concentrate on only infrastructural things that the private sector cannot do. Anything that the private sector can do, we should not do it. Again, we said we are basing this budget on zero-based budgeting. But looking at this budget, it's not zero-based at all. Because if you look at the budget, you just see that the figures that were there in 2015, they just add to it. And when they add to it, they put a new figure. Zero-based budgeting is to ensure that every item justifies itself. I've not seen that in this budget yet. Let me also say that...
Thank you, Honorable Imago. You have exhausted your 2 minutes. You have even taken 4 minutes. To today's debate, in view of the fact that we still have some other matters on the other paper, and I would want to plead with the following honorable members to take the debate on